Are you totally different when it comes to sex and copulation? Have you judged yourself out of receiving pleasure? Have you judged yourself into receiving pleasure in certain ways and excluded other ways? Would you like to know more about what else is possible with bodies? Would you like to create confidence in the bedroom and beyond? How has your sex life or lack of it affected other areas of your life? Everyone has the potency to be a sexual superhero. Get ready to listen, sense, and play with the sexualness that is you. Now, here's the host of The Pleasure Zone, pleasure diva and body whisperer, Milica Jelenic.
Hello, everybody. Good evening, and welcome to The Pleasure Zone. If you're listening, you're officially what I call a pleasure seeker. What are pleasure seekers? Well, those are people who in life are choosing something totally different and totally greater for their life and their bodies in terms of pleasure, right? If you're listening to the show, the chances are you're actually looking to have more pleasure in your life. And even though the title of this, Sexless Marriage, sounds like a total paradox to what I'm actually talking about, it actually has to do with how do we invite ourselves into something other than a sexless marriage if it doesn't work for us. But if a sexless marriage works for you, then, how can you totally embrace it? There's no right or wrong here on this show, so I'm not here to bash people with sexless marriages. I'm just here to identify so you can, know, am I in that? Is that me? And do I need to judge me for that? Or what can I do? Or what can I do to change it if I want to? Or how do I thrive in this if this is what I've got? There's a lot that can go on, sexless marriages can actually last a really long time. So if that works for the people. So what actually has me on this show tonight is my total curiosity and desire to actually bring more awareness to the planet about bodies and pleasure and sex and all things that have to do with a lot of taboo subjects that a lot of people when they do talk about it, they just make it seem like a porn show, or sometimes when other people talk about it, it's so freaking clinical it can get boring. So I like to think that I'm somewhere in the middle of porn and clinical, and I'm here to offer you kind of lots of ideas. I do like to do research in this area, So, of course, the cookies on my computer are forever offering me strange things like penis enlargement systems because I love looking at all kinds of things in different areas. So I do consider myself somewhere in between clinical and pornographic. There's something in between, and I just don't have the name for that. Maybe it's clinographic. That sounds kind of like clitoral stimulation, but that's good too, right? So that might help with a sexless marriage, a little clitoral stimulation here and there. So I have in my life, I studied at university. I have a BA with an emphasis in psychology. I have studied different types of holistic practitioner studies that would have me kind of more engaged with things energetic, so energetic classes of all kinds for over the last 25 years, I guess. And so really involved in all kinds of different things for the last 25 years. And I do, on my daily practice, I actually work with bodies and people. My main target is to actually give bodies pleasure, and I know that sounds like I'm a sex worker, but I can, truly I believe that we can approach pleasure from so many angles. So I do body work that actually allows your body to have less stress and more movement, and I do something called radionics, which is actually a type of healing work using scalar wave technology. So I do a lot of random things because I love to see when people's bodies are happy and healthy, and I love to see people get results that really work for them. So I like to add all these modalities to my life where I get that people can have more pleasure of embodiment because we're here on this planet. Can we please enjoy it while we're here? right? So that's kind of my target and my plan. And in line with that, too, is talking about different topics. So if you've noticed, this is episode 201, and if you've noticed, I've had over 200 shows, and in these 200 shows, I really have not repeated a topic. So although I may have touched on things in the last few months, I did touch on some topics about scheduling sex. It wasn't directly about sexless marriage, but sexless marriage is a pretty big topic. And actually, when I went to go do some additional research beyond what my thoughts were on it, I was finding that there were actually articles that were ranking top on my Google search engines that just came out in the last few days. So I think there's a lot of people right now thinking about that on the planet. Sometimes it's a seasonal thing, right? You've got, I think it kind of goes with the seasons, just the way animals do. Animals tend to, well, it depends on how long their gestational period is for for carrying their babies or their young. If you've got a gestational period that's a few weeks, a few months actually, like cats or something, then cats are forever getting it on in the spring. It's just their natural cycle, and their target is to not have, it's not that they have a conscious target necessarily, but their bodies are aware that if they copulate in the spring, they're going to have babies that are going to be old enough to be walking around in the winter to be able to kind of look after themselves. And it's more of a functional thing, especially in like North America. It's a functional thing for animals to have their young be old enough during the winter to survive. So it's total survival instincts. And I think somewhere we're not that far off. We, even though, we look like we don't have animal traits, or we don't look like chimpanzees anymore, but we definitely have some traits that would have us, these traits that would have us sometimes go into seasonal cycles when it comes to sex. Or some people don't have just seasonal cycles. They might have cycles that are like, I'm more of a morning person, I'm more of a night person, I'm more of a weekend person, I'm more of a Wednesday hump day person. And they have these sort of cycles that they've created. Some of it, could be super, super old, like, the springtime cycles. I'm really always horny in the spring and summer. Well, that could be for human beings. It could be a seasonal thing, It's more functional to have your babies in a season where, they can be outside and growing outside and toilet trained outside. I don't know. It's all about the toilet training. I think a lot of what we do, even though we think we're super conscious, our bodies do have a tendency to run on an instinct that has to do with more with survival, and it has to do more with, if the seasons are off, or if our bodies have a sense like, that we might have to ration food, like we might somewhere have these unconscious awarenesses going on, there's like crops are low, something's low, and our bodies have this instinct that sex equals, reproduction of children. So, you might want to look around and kind of look at some things going on outside too, is as much as we don't always acknowledge it, our bodies are highly, highly in tune with the earth and the earth's cycles. So, if crops are low, will we be like rabbits and not produce or have a desire to, be copulating and trying to produce babies? It's very, very possible. I know there is research done on rabbits that they will actually withhold trying to reproduce offspring if and when they have this, there's like low crop yields, because they won't survive, and they just know that, so they just don't produce as many offspring. And somewhere, I like to think that we might be sort of hardwired to be smart enough to, maybe our population on our planet's getting so high that somewhere instinctively our sex drives are getting lower, so that we're not actually producing or overproducing and overpopulating this planet. It's a sad thought, but at the same time, it's a possible thought, because, I think ultimately we do care about our own survival, so we might not look to overpopulate the planet. Now, if everybody was reproducing like rabbits, and they were instinctive to the food cycles, then there would be definitely countries where, food production is lower, where they might be producing less children. That's one option, right? And then even though I'm living in Canada right now, and we have really amazing food crops and yields of food, there's still seasons where sometimes things are low. So I'm kind of looking at that going, I wonder if there's a trend going on where people's sex drives are being affected by, I know that's like a really strange connection here, but when you're looking at the sexless marriage, I think you need to look beyond just what is maybe obvious, like beyond sometimes the scheduling, or I think there's sometimes a bigger picture that we need to really look at, and look at how our bodies are affected by the planet and how our bodies are interacting with the planet, because there's so much of that there's so much of our bodies that are both healing the planet, receiving from it, and gifting to it, that if we were really truly aware of it, I think we would just probably lie down on the ground all day long and gift and receive from the earth, and we probably wouldn't get a lot of production done. But we might not need to, because our bodies might just be looked after. That's a whole other crazy wacko theory that I have playing in my head. So when it comes to, some of the things so my point of view is maybe it has to do with, food production, because somewhere innately we are kind of tied to our own survival. If there's, and there is sort of an understanding too, in terms of research that's been done, that people have also, their sex drive can sometimes go lower when there's money issues, right? Well, money and food production are pretty strangely, pretty close to each other when it comes to survival. It all has to do with survival of the fittest, having higher money inflows, higher amount of food, having shelter. All of those things can certainly make you feel more inclined to have sex. But then there are a lot of people too who have all of those things and they aren't inclined to it. So that's another reason why I wonder, does it have something to do with our connection to the earth? And if it does, how does that affect our hormones? Men go through andropause just as women go through menopause. So I think that's a highly under talked about subject as well, where men's hormones are being completely affected as well. So, and why and how are they being affected is another question. So it all gets pretty interesting when you kind of get into it. There's some really, really basic things, like I was saying at the beginning, there's some basic things when it comes down to it, scheduling, timing, whatever that is. That can be, those things are changeable. When it comes down to there are a lot of things that are actually changeable that create a sexless marriage. And the thing that I just did want to bring up, which is, your connection to the earth. It's not necessarily that you need to change your connection to the earth, but are you willing to be aware of it? So if you are aware of it and you're like, oh, okay, so I'm not feeling very horny. Truth, what does that have? Is that mine? Is that somebody else's? Oh, is it the earth? Is the earth actually asking us to not copulate, to not produce children? But if you happen to have a partner who has either had a vasectomy or has had their tubes tied, then, your chances of not producing are pretty good, but you still have you still got hormones running that would tell you produce or don't produce, So I know it's a really, really weird thing, because what if we are actually overpopulating, and are we, would contributing our energy, our sexual energy to the earth actually be a really, really great gift? If you've got it and you're not sure what to do with it, and maybe you're feeling like you've got way more of it than your partner, start to wonder and start to play with some questions on that. Like, Earth, would you like to receive this? You can lie on the earth and you can just gift it through lying there, or just sit there and consciously gift it to the earth. Or if you're really, really cool, you can just go and hump the earth. There are people who do that. So there's no right or wrong on that part. Just what would be fun to actually gift to the earth, because maybe the earth is actually asking us not to overpopulate, which is a funny thing. But how do we still have pleasure of embodiment? Because our bodies are so sensory and they love to be touched. And how do we still have that? How do we still create that and not get into the weird part of where we might not be copulating because we don't want to overpopulate? No, this is a topic going in a funny direction. So, my brain is going in funny directions. So I'm going to kind of recalibrate and see what direction would this like to go next. And just want to remind you guys, you are listening to The Pleasure Zone here on Inspired Choices Network. And I'm your hostess, Milica Jelenic, and we will be right back after this commercial break.
Many of us have created a lot of limitations around sex and what we are willing to choose. What else is possible beyond what we have already seen, heard, or thought of? What if now is the time for a totally different sexual revolution, taking the taboo out of all aspects of sex, sexuality, and copulation by tuning in to the Pleasure Zone radio show with body whisperer Milica Jelenic. You'll receive tools, inspiration, and a foundation to allow yourself to receive more in your sex life and quite possibly other areas of your life as well. Listen for The Pleasure Zone with Milica every Monday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 7 p.m. Central Time, 6 p.m. Mountain Time, and 5 p.m. Pacific Time on InspiredChoicesNetwork.com.
Are you a subject matter expert? Are you here to share your expertise with an audience waiting to hear from you in only the way you can deliver? Are you ready to have your voice amplified across the airwaves? Inspired Choices Network has a global radio platform streaming to millions of people across the world. Professionally produced and supported by an accomplished team every step of the way, you can broadcast from anywhere in the world, knowing your voice matters, and we ensure it is delivered with ease and efficiency. Eager to hear your message, the world awaits. Contact us today to become an Inspired Choices Network radio host. Email becomeahost@inspiredchoicesnetwork.com.
This is The Pleasure Zone with body whisperer Milica Jelenic. To participate in the program today, please call in the U.S. Call 815-880-8255. That's TALK. Or Canada, 613-800-8736. Or you can Skype us at Inspired Choices Network. You can also make the choice to ask or comment by email at milicajelenic.com. Now back to the program.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to The Pleasure Zone, and I'm your host, Milica Jelenic, and tonight we are talking about sexless marriage. So there's so many levels to sexless marriage. You know, there's a lot of people are actually having sex, but defining what they're having as is sexless marriage. So a sexless marriage, according to definition, is a marriage with little or no sexual activity between the two people. So notice it's not no sexual activity. It's little or no sexual activity between the two people. And little is kind of objective, right? Subjective. It's something that depends on your point of view what a little bit of sex is. So, for example, wow, some big energies moving. So I actually have a friend who, she's currently divorced, but she would have actually considered that what she was living in, and she was with the person for about 12 years, that she was in a sexless marriage. They were having sex like once a month or maybe once every few weeks, but for her, for what her body required, she actually required a lot more, which was like daily sex. But her partner that was not his sort of deal. But when it really came down to it, it was actually that he had been hiding some stuff from her. He'd been hiding some financial stuff from her. He was lying to her about stuff. and all of it was financial. And he, for some reason, that just ended his sex drive. When he didn't lie to her about money, he was fine. But when he did lie to her about money, everything went downhill. So that was something that she started to become more and more aware of. So kind of interesting, eh? So everybody's got their kind of reason or their justification why they're not feeling sexy, and, oh, I'm tired, I work too hard, or, oh, this or oh, that. But I dare you, when it comes to having a sexless marriage, if you're in one, I dare you to get super honest with yourself. What is really going on here? Ask yourself that for you. What energy are you being, for one? Are you being an energy that's actually, like, if you're being a whiny complainer, quite frankly, I would think that if I was with a whiny complainer, I wouldn't feel sexually attracted to them either. So what are you being? Who are you being? What are you acting like? Are you being pushy? Like, what are you being that is actually repulsive? Right? So you got to take ownership of your actions too. Yes, your partner might not be interested in you, or you might not be interested in your partner. Acknowledge what you're choosing to be and how you're choosing to act. And I say act because you're probably not being yourself. I speak to that from experience because when I was in another partnership before my marriage, I truly wasn't being myself, but I really wanted that person to leave. And in order for them to leave, it's like I had to be everything that wasn't attractive to them. It's like I had to be somebody completely different just to make sure that person would finally choose to go away. So are you intentionally repulsing your partner and then turning it around and being, rude about it and making it all about them? Oh yeah, you disgust me, but really you're like trying to repulse them because, we unconsciously, subconsciously put a lot of things into action when we don't actually want the relationship anymore. So I don't know. It's a funny road to go down, right? And a lot of people don't ever want to admit that they're unconsciously or subconsciously trying to sabotage the marriage or trying to put fault on the other person. So I challenge you to look at this very honestly and go, am I creating this? What am I creating here? Am I trying to actually repulse my partner? Am I doing that? Oh, yeah, did I create this? I bet you have a role in it because it takes two to take that tango down the road. So you definitely have a role in it to some degree. And that degree might even be that you haven't been willing to talk about it or that you ignore it. So you're like, yeah, that doesn't matter. Yeah, whatever. You brush it off. When you're brushing off your partner, if something matters to your partner and you're brushing it off, that's already there's already smoke signals going in the air for assistance. So you've already got those smoke signals going, and now it's just waiting for some help to show up, right? You can also go seek the assistance too. You can talk to, maybe talking to friends. Sometimes they'll take sides. So one of your other options to do is talk to somebody neutral. You can talk to, you could talk to counselors. You could talk to, coaches or therapists, anybody really that's going to be playing a neutral role for you. So I really want you to look at that and be honest with yourself. I do know people who have had full-on sexless marriages for years and years and years. And it does come to a place where your relationship becomes like roommates. And that can work for people. For some people, that's actually ideal. So it's not an issue. When it's ideal and you're fine with not having sex with your partner and your partner's fine with not having sex with you and you're living in the same environment and you're getting by every day, you're contributing to the household stuff like the chores and the getting, life is moving by and you're happy with that, bless you, because man, that's awesome if you can just be in a place where that stuff doesn't bother you. But if something's bothering you, you really got to have your own back and look at it and start to decide and choose. Well, decide's not really the word, but start to choose something different. Start to explore, what are my options here? What can I choose and what can it be to not have a sexless marriage? So number one, your number one sex partner is you. That's your number one sex partner. So if you're having a sexless marriage and you're feeling sexually unsatisfied, first and foremost, are you willing to take up the reins and satisfy you? Yes, it's different than your partner, and we can forever blame the partner, like they're not doing their job, they're not satisfying me, they're not doing their job. I want it to be from so-and-so. Okay, you're the only one responsible for your pleasure and your happiness in this embodiment. I hate to tell you this again and again and again, but that's the truth. Your partner is a bonus, and if they're willing to come and play, and they're willing to come and have play dates with you, consider yourself lucky and blessed, because you're actually the only one responsible for that. So your number one sex partner is you. You totally count. So if you're thinking you're not having sex, that's because you haven't met your friendly hands, and you haven't met any sex toys, or you haven't met any pleasure devices that are making you happy, that are bringing your body some joy. That's your choice. You actually create that. So if you're really, really upset about it, remember you have a say. So the funny thing about sexless marriage is that they're always putting that on, that it has to involve the couple having sex with each other, right? So I know we're just going to go on to a totally different angle on this, but you can be in a marriage and you can have an agreement that, if your partnership doesn't, if you and your partner are not having sex or satisfying sex, there are a lot of people who are now choosing open marriages so that they can enjoy other bodies. And for a lot of people who are able to be really, to have some clear kind of guidelines and playing rules to actually have open marriage, you can actually create something that works for both of you. Now, not a lot of people are in the mind state to be able to handle an open marriage. Jealousy plays a big role. There's ownership of each other that comes in. No, he's mine. No, she's mine. There's this ownership thing. But if you're able to actually be happy for your partner being happy, which is such a rare commodity, if you're able to be that, and and it works for you and it works for your partner, you can actually be in a marriage, not have sex with your partner, but you could have sex with somebody else. So I'm not talking about your only option in order to have sex and be married is to have sex with your husband or your wife. That's not your only option. You can definitely have sex with other partners if that's actually something that works for your relationship. So I definitely encourage you to see what works for your relationship. And if you're listening to this and you're not married yet, have these conversations before you get married. I had some of the craziest conversations before right off the bat, a few weeks into dating my now husband. We had some of the craziest conversations that to me are normal, because I think everybody needs to talk about these things. And if people aren't willing to talk about them, then they're probably not even willing to actually have conversations later on in the relationship either. That might be really, conversations that work for you. So it's, conversations that are important to you, conversations about your relationship. But if you can't have these conversations even in the early beginning stages of relationship, and ask hey, so have you ever considered if you're with somebody for years and they can't copulate with you, hey, would you be willing to open it up to other people? And my husband and I actually did have that conversation before we got married. We discussed, so if your body parts don't work and they're not functioning, is it a free-for-all? And we both agree there's a free-for-all. There's a time, in the relationship where if there's been no sex for a while, then there's a free-for-all. You can go out and it's just like understood. Love you, but require sex, so there we go. It's just an agreement that we have. And that was a funny conversation because somewhere I brought that up in a conversation with my dad, and I think I just about gave him a freaking heart attack. He was trying to tell me about how awful people are about cheating or something, and I'm like, get over yourself. You have no idea what people agree to. I said, this is what I have as an agreement, and so it's not an issue, but you're assuming that people are not grown up or open enough to discuss these things. So maybe 40 years ago or 50 years ago when my dad met my mom, they weren't discussing these things, but I still know people that were discussing things like that back then. It really just comes down to willingness and openness. So we haven't even really touched the iceberg here on sexless marriage. Who knew this topic was going to be so in-depth and diverse and so many angles to it? So I just want to remind you guys that you are listening to The Pleasure Zone here on Inspired Choices Network, and I'm your hostess, Milica Jelenic, and we will be right back after this commercial break.
Many of us have created a lot of limitations around sex and what we are willing to choose. What else is possible beyond what we have already seen, heard, or thought of? What if now is the time for a totally different sexual revolution, taking the taboo out of all aspects of sex, sexuality, and copulation by tuning in to the Pleasure Zone radio show with body whisperer Milica Jelenic. You'll receive tools, inspiration, and a foundation to allow yourself to receive more in your sex life and quite possibly other areas of your life as well. Listen for the Pleasure Zone with Milica every Monday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 7 p.m. Central Time, 6 p.m. Mountain Time, and 5 p.m. Pacific Time on InspiredChoicesNetwork.com.
What would you say if I told you that you could change your life in only 1 hour and all while lying down relaxing? Thousands of people all over the world have. What am I talking about? It's called Access Consciousness, the bars. The bars is an energetic body process that contains 32 different points on your head that when run assist you in releasing decisions about any area of your life that you have made solid and as a result cannot change. The bars is the first class in Access Consciousness, a dynamic set of tools and information designed to transform any area of your life. When you have a bars session, the worst that can happen is you feel like you had a fantastic massage. The best thing that can happen is your whole life could change. Go to accessconsciousness.com today to find a facilitator to schedule a private session or to find a bars class in your area. Are you willing to give yourself an hour to change your life?
This is The Pleasure Zone with body whisperer Milica Jelenic. To participate in the program today, please call in the U.S. Call 815-880-8255. That's TALK. Or Canada, 613-800-8736. Or you can Skype us at Inspired Choices Network. You can also make the choice to ask or comment by email at milicajelenic.com. Now back to the program.
Hello, sweet pleasure seekers. Welcome back to the Pleasure Zone. And tonight we're talking about sexless marriage. So if you're just joining us now, you're going to realize that, man, I've got a little bit of a different take on sexless marriage than some people. And that's me, and that's the Pleasure Zone, and that's why I create this show, because I do seem to have a bit of a different take than some people on these topics. So some of the research that I did find, I thought I would share with you guys, is that some of the common reasons for a sexless marriage. Now, these are pretty common indeed, and they're definitely things that I think are resolvable or that there's a way that you can change it. So one of them is a mismatched sexual libido. So I know that like a lot of people talk about, I'm more horny in the morning and I'm more horny at night, but the truth is a lot of times if you're willing to go with, like, say your partner is a morning person and your body is like a night person for being horny. Sometimes if you're willing to just accommodate the other person here and there, they'll be willing to accommodate you too. So part of that is, your willingness to play and your willingness to not get stuck in the I am horny at night, defining when you are horny. Because as soon as you define that, you're telling your body and you're giving your body a message that this is how it is and there's no way that's going to change. What if your body and your libido was actually like constant? What if it was not any different in the morning or any different at night and it was always there? You just might feel maybe more awake at some time of the day. So you might feel more just awake in general. And that's one part of it. But you might actually have a libido that is neither a high or a low. So stop telling yourself the story of I'm horny in the morning, or this makes me horny, or once you've already told yourself those stories, you've already defined it, you've already planned it, and you've already given your body that message. So once you've given your body that message, your body picks up that message and it obeys. Bodies are pretty amazing like that. They love information and they change with information. So give it some new information. Maybe your body's libido is also reacting to an awareness that you have about your partner. For example, if your partner is, having an affair or something, and your body is aware of it, your body might go, I'm not really interested in having whatever that is. So, and you might not even be fully aware of it, but your body might be aware of it, and your body might be turned off by the energy, because somewhere our bodies always know what's going on. And if your body is not the kind of body who wants to share in that kind of stuff, then it might just turn itself off and not be interested at all. And sometimes, and so I'm giving you common reasons, but I'm giving you my whole other take on it as well. So one of the other common reasons is relationship conflict. That's a pretty broad spectrum of what can occur in a relationship conflict. Lots of things like infidelity jump in there, financial stuff, raising of the children, like so many things can come into relationship conflict, having to hang out with so-and-so, the in-laws or whatever. So many things can create relationship conflict. But you got to ask, are any of those things like deal breakers for you? And if you haven't heard my show on deal breakers and deal makers, I think you just have to search for that in Inspired Choices Network. I can't remember the name of it right now, but I think it had the word deal in it. So even if you probably search deal, it'll come up. And so relationship conflict, with that really, really broad spectrum, is something that is, again, it's something that you can resolve if you would like to. But again, sometimes a relationship conflict is working for you and you want the conflict. Like in the past relationship that I had, the conflict worked for me. I actually wanted out of the relationship so bad that I was willing to have a fight, intense fights, like daily, like screaming matches daily, just in order for that person to finally get that this doesn't work and leave. Sometimes we're really cute and not so bright, and I was really willing to go the 9 yards to get this person out of my life. Or I could have been complacent and just took it for the rest of my life, but I really wanted it over with. So I was willing to go the 9 yards and have the conflicts, because the conflicts worked for me, and the sexless relationship worked for me in that case, because I really, really wanted out. So you got to ask, if you're in one of these, is the person creating this because they want out? And, sometimes asking somebody full on that question out of the blue can be shocking, and sometimes the truth comes out. So if you're like, hey, would you like to be, you just still want to be in this relationship, or you want out? Sometimes that bold question can be both shocking and it can deliver results. So, yeah, but, follow your own knowing on that. Don't follow mine, because that's my approach to things. It doesn't have to be yours. There's also negative feelings towards your partner, like anger and resentment, but that's usually what causes the conflict. So if you're resenting them for, things not being done or things being done a certain way, or if you've got OCD and they're just not following your OCD patterns, or any anger from the past that's been unresolved, all that stuff, just it's like it gets turned inward, and it definitely, instead of having your sex drive build up, it definitely takes it away. So why is that? There's actually a physiological response in the body that occurs when your body's holding on to anger. It all it feels is I gotta either run or fight. It's that whole fight or flight symptom when you get anger coming in, right? It's our natural reaction. Your body is not interested in copulating when it requires to live or die. So when you're feeling super, super angry towards somebody, you're more in the mode of fight or flight, less in the mode of thrive and copulate, to have more creation and more beings on the planet. It's definitely not a horny time when when you're feeling angry. Some people like angry sex, though, so that is a whole other topic, angry sex. And some people will create conflict in order to have, create angry sex, which was conflicting and confusing for me because, and again, in that past relationship that I had, my ex would have actually, he loved to be angry and aggressive and almost cruel in when it came to sex. So for him, it was like having a fight meant that he was going to be able to be nasty and aggressive back. It was not my most fun time of my life. So if it doesn't work for you, find a way out. And especially if a person is acting like a crazy person, definitely find a way out. Definitely call a hotline or call somebody and get yourself out of that situation, because you don't have to be in it for years and years and years like I chose to be. You can definitely get yourself out. So one of the other things that people do is they withhold sex as punishment. And, punishment is an interesting thing. It's like we think somehow that, punishing people without sex, are you punishing them or are you punishing you? Like for me, if I was withholding sex from my partner, I'm only punishing me, because my body enjoys copulation. It enjoys touch, kind touch and kind copulation. It enjoys that. So if I'm withholding that from my partner, my lover, if I'm withholding that from my lover, well, then I'm just actually punishing me, and that's not fun. So check that out. Who are you actually punishing when you think you're doing the punishment act? Probably yourself. Could be boredom too, is another thing. There was actually a study done recently, and my husband was telling me about that. Since Netflix came out, there's been a surge of people who are actually getting both divorced and having more sexless marriages, because they've been so involved with Netflix and series of Netflix, where they just used to watch one show and they would go to bed and they'd actually spend time together, and now they're just 7 shows in a row, and then they're totally exhausted and they're not having sex. It's actually destroying sex lives. As much as Netflix can be super fun for the binging, it can also be very super destructive for the connecting with other human beings and your sex lives. So boredom can be a cause. Boredom with the person as well. If it's the same thing over and over again, it's like eating toast with butter every day. And if you're anything like me, you like different food every day. So toast with butter every day is very, very boring. And I would actually call that relationship, that's not even a vanilla kind of sex life to me. That's a toast. That's like dry Melba toast sex life. And I'm not interested in dry Melba toast. At least vanilla is got some flavor. And vanilla is like a nice ice cream, and it's still got nice texture, and it's refreshing, and there's still some yumminess, and different vanillas taste different ways. So I can still get into the vanilla lifestyle. And, with additional fun, other fun too, sprinkles on the side, right? Like, that's all fun. So you can add to your vanilla lifestyle if that's what you have to kind of break free from what would be boredom for you. So, boredom is definitely one of those things that gets people to change work, boredom right now is huge because we have so many people with ADHD, and just like it's rampant. I think I don't know what the statistics are, but I think everybody I know has ADHD, or maybe I just run in circles with a lot of ADHD people. So it's rampant. So it's easy to get bored. So just like when you have ADHD, you might want to do 5 things at once. If you have ADHD and you're bored, what about adding more partners? Just ideas, just totally new ideas, right? You might need, all kinds of body parts to touch instead of just one. It's sex for the ADHD couple. That's what I'm looking at right now. What is possible for the ADHD couple to have lots of movement, lots of play, and lots of body parts to touch? So lots to consider here. So I just want to remind you guys you're listening to The Pleasure Zone here on Inspired Choices Network. I'm your hostess, Milica, and we will be back right after this commercial break.
Many of us have created a lot of limitations around sex and what we are willing to choose. What else is possible beyond what we have already seen, heard, or thought of? What if now is the time for a totally different sexual revolution, taking the taboo out of all aspects of sex, sexuality, and copulation by tuning in to the Pleasure Zone radio show with body whisperer Milica Jelenic. You'll receive tools, inspiration, and a foundation to allow yourself to receive more in your sex life and quite possibly other areas of your life as well. Listen for the Pleasure Zone with Milica every Monday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 7 p.m. Central Time, 6 p.m. Mountain Time, and 5 p.m. Pacific Time on InspiredChoicesNetwork.com.
Hey everybody, this is Dr. Dane here, and I would like to invite you to an adventure in being. I've just written and finished a new book known as Being You, Changing the World. Are you one of those dreamers? One of those people who's always known that other possibilities should be available but haven't yet been able to see them be created? Well, I wrote this book for you. In it, you'll find tools, processes, and unique perspectives to change the things you've always wanted to change but didn't know how. In it, you'll find an invitation to a different possibility for a way that we can be in this world that changes not only our lives, but by being us, allows us to contribute to changing everything planet-wide that doesn't work. Are you aware that truly great people, truly being them, is the only thing that has ever created a great change on this planet? Are you willing to step up? Are you willing to be one? Check out a copy of my new book, Being You, Changing the World. I invite you to go to beingyoubook.com for a free gift.
This is The Pleasure Zone with body whisperer Milica Jelenic. To participate in the program today, please call in the U.S. Call 815-880-8255. That's TALK. Or Canada, 613-800-8736. Or you can Skype us at Inspired Choices Network. You can also make the choice to ask or comment by email at milicajelenic.com. Now back to the program.
Hello, sweet pleasure seekers. Welcome back to the Pleasure Zone. And tonight I'm talking about sexless marriage. And there's a few definitions of that, right? So sexless marriage doesn't mean that you're having no sex. It could just be meaning that you're having not very much of it, which again is kind of a quantity thing, quantity over quality. Well, so it depends. Are you satisfied? Is your body satiated with the sex that you're having? So does your body feel satiated with the sex that you're having? And if it is, that's awesome. You would not be in the classification of sexless marriage. Sexless marriage would be more like where you are not feeling satiated from your sex life. So that is changeable. And reminder, ding, 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 you are your number one lover and your number one sex partner. So have fun with you first, and if you need tips and tools on that, there are lots of shows that I have in my archives for that. And so some other things that come up that are some of the main justifications people have for having a sexless marriage. And this was a study done with a bunch of people, and all their claims to why they have a sexless marriage. Some of them say that it's their tiredness, maybe they just had a child, stress could be from work or money or whatever. Erectile dysfunction. Now, some of these are physiological things, like erectile dysfunction. It can actually be caused by different diseases that have occurred in the body. Erectile dysfunction can show up for people who have had prostate cancer, or they could have, there could be scar tissue in the penis from different injuries. There can be heart medication that's creating erectile dysfunction. So there's a lot of factors that can actually create erectile dysfunction. But your penis, boys, is not your only way to actually pleasure another body, right? If you're alive, the chances are you have a mouth, I'm guessing. You might have hands, you might not, but you might have prosthetic hands, which could be just as fun. And wouldn't it be cool if they had prosthetics that actually were like little penises? They were like your sex toy prosthetics, totally different prosthetics, but they would be like your fingers instead. But you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm just having this visual. And so you got hands, you got feet, you got a body, you can hug, you can touch. This is really about connecting with your partner, because so much of this starts with feeling disconnected, not feeling a sense of closeness or a sense of intimacy with your partner. So it's really, really, if you would like to change your sexless marriage, it's like, what do you require in order to have a sense of intimacy and connectedness with your partner? And for everybody, it's going to be different. For some people, it's like going out and having a great dinner together. They'll help them feel more connected. For other people, it's like gardening together or walking together or cleaning together. It's like, what is it for you? And it might only be that, you just need hugs, or you need some cuddles, or whatever it is for you. You need to honor you. And if you're not feeling satiated with your sex life, definitely start asking some questions and get yourself either some, you can either get yourself a coach or somebody you can consult with, or you can get a therapist, or you can contact me. Actually work with people on an emotional level, on a physical level, physiological level. And I have a 21-day program that I just completed that's available that you can actually purchase called Sexual Magicism. And it's really about being the sexual magic you are, so that, if you are being that energy, you can invite your partner into that if you like, or, you don't have to invite them in. But sometimes when you're just being that, it invites your partner in or invites others in, and then your body can receive from whoever and whatever. It's really about allowing your body to receive whatever it requires and not have a point of view. And how beautiful would it be if you also had a partner who didn't have a point of view, so you could receive from anybody and everybody and not really have to worry about hurting feelings or anything like that. So lots of ideas there. So if you would like to connect with me, you can find me on my website at www.milicajelenic.com. I also have a Facebook page for the Pleasure Zone, and I would love it if you came in and started following that. My target is to have 1,000 followers, and I'm at 705 right now, and I'd love to have more. So come on into Facebook and follow the Pleasure Zone, and that is, you'll know it's me because it's got a banner. It says the Pleasure Zone Radio, so follow that. I'd love that. I don't know what my topic is going to be next week, but I'm sure it's going to be something totally entertaining. I do have a few topics that are prepared for the middle and end of October, and I'm looking forward to those, and I'll have those posted soon to share with you guys. So until next week, I hope that you guys remember to stay tuned in and turned on, and I look forward to talking with you guys next week.
Thank you for choosing to listen to The Pleasure Zone. Milica Jelenic will return next Monday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 7 p.m. Central, 6 p.m. Mountain, and 5 p.m. Pacific on InspiredChoicesNetwork.com. We hope you'll join us. Until then, have the best week of your life by choosing to be turned on and tuned in to your body.